Hello. Today I'm going to share with you some stress management tips to deal with the fears, the uncertainties, the anxieties due to the coronavirus infection and the lockdown period. Okay? So there's been, when people are locked down, the word lockdown itself, it's like you are in jail, you are confined to space. And so that comes with it. That comes with a lot of anxieties. People are anxious about getting infected, about getting sick, and even dying. Then business people are anxious about their businesses. Are they going to manage? How are they going to pay people? And the employees on the other hand, some of them have already started not getting their salaries or getting half salaries. We've had quite a number of complaints from parents overwhelmed with taking care of their children 24/7. Imagine having a 4-year-old asking lots of questions, being clingy, because guess what? Even children also have their fair share of anxieties. So one of the first tips in managing anxiety is awareness. Awareness of what might cause stress, what might cause mental health problems. Okay? So I mentioned children earlier. It's important to know that even children get anxious. They catch the negative vibes that we have as parents. And so what do we need to do? We need to use age-appropriate language to tell them what's going on, to keep them in the loop, to assure them so that they are not adding to the problems that we are already frustrated with. Working at home, problems with connection, problems with gadgets, and just being disconnected from your usual routine. We are also noting that there is so much information that's coming in from various social media platforms, and most of it is negative, catastrophic. Pictures, images, videos of coffins, of the coronavirus, of deaths. There's so much that's going on that's likely to trigger negative emotions amongst us. So I say that the first thing is awareness. And this awareness, some people can actually cope with negative life situations. So don't think about awareness for yourself, thinking that, no, I can cope. Even though some people have believed that they can cope, and then eventually they find that they break down. So think about your brother, be your brother's keeper, because while you may be doing well, you need to pay attention to what's happening to your brothers, what's happening to your loved ones, what negative life situations might have happened. Are they dealing with a breakup? Have they faced a funeral? Are they worried about their jobs? So that you can at least be aware of what might consequently happen to them and support them appropriately. So awareness of mental health issues, that's what I'm going to share with you. So what I've just talked about are the potential causes of stress that can trigger unwellness in people. What are some of the common symptoms? So sleep is one of the most common symptoms that occurs when someone is stressed. People usually lose sleep, although occasionally they might actually oversleep. People have problems with appetite. You know how it happens when you are told, maybe, say you've ordered your favorite meal and you're about to enjoy your meal. If you get a call to say, Mom has broken a leg, your appetite immediately goes and your bowels give way, okay? So those are some of the common symptoms. In addition to that, a lot of people become irritable, easily getting annoyed. And then a lot of people will start worrying, thinking. Usually we call it rumination, where you are thinking but you are actually not getting to a solution. And usually that kind of thinking, you cannot voluntarily stop yourself from thinking, okay? So those are some of the common symptoms. Physically, you may experience tension on your chest, tension on your neck, tension in the shoulders, or you can even experience body aches. These can be generalized or they can be specific to certain parts of the body. Your headaches, these are also very common symptoms of stress, okay? So now that we are aware of the symptoms, what are the potential long-term effects of stress if it's not managed well? you are then likely to slip into anxiety. So this is where a person experiences episodes of having palpitations, shortness of breath. Those other symptoms also continue your irritability and worry. Then you can slip into depression, where you have these symptoms for, say, at least 2 weeks, the problems with sleep, the problems with appetite and the like. And then you might actually find that some people become suicidal because when this continues to happen, they begin to feel worthless, they begin to feel a deep sense of helplessness and a sense of hopelessness, like you just see that there is darkness at the end of the tunnel. And I want to highlight immediately that if depression is not, again, appropriately dealt with, it can develop into psychosis. You know, when we say someone has actually lost it, we've had quite a number of people begin to see things, begin to hear voices, begin to speak to themselves, isolating themselves, withdrawn, doing inappropriate things if this is not taken care of. You might have come across this in the papers where it was in the headline read, "Top emergency rooms, New York City doctor commits suicide due to she became overwhelmed by corona deaths and she committed suicide." This is an intelligent, very functional, highly functional woman who later committed suicide because she got overwhelmed. Here in Bulawayo, there was another article where a woman asked her husband 3 times and he died. And the story says that they were fighting over a remote, that the daughter changed channels and the mother was upset, complained, but the husband didn't take action. And later when you were sleeping, she went and chopped him with an axe. So these are extreme cases, but as you can see, these are things that are happening to highly functional people, people in families, and we want you to be alert of potential dangers so that you can be there to support your relatives. Okay, so what then can we do? We are aware of the causes. We are now aware of some of the symptoms and the eventual consequences. There's other things that we need to be aware of. You need to have a self-awareness. So we are looking at knowing what sort of things trigger you, knowing what sort of things overwhelm you, what are you going through in your life, because guess what? It's not just the negative things that can cause stress, even the positive things. If you are organizing a wedding and you are writing your final exams and maybe you've been promoted at work, all these things are bound to overwhelm you and you become stressed. So be aware of what's happening in your life so that you can remove some things off your plate if lest you become overwhelmed. Even just being aware of what your weaknesses are, what sort of things trigger you, and most importantly, also being aware of your coping mechanisms, because obviously you've had to deal with some other stresses and you've managed to overcome. Because usually when people get overwhelmed, they've become helpless, they forget that they already have strengths, they already have skills to cope with with stresses that they've used before, and you can mobilize these resources to deal with the current pressures. Okay? So after you are aware of this, I'm going to share with you some tips that you can also use. The first thing is to make sure that you are taking care of your body, because you cannot have a healthy mind in an unhealthy body. So the usual self-care tips apply here. So this means you need to be eating a regular, healthy diet, drinking lots of water. Never underestimate the importance of hydrating your body. You've noticed that if you don't drink enough water, you begin to suffer from a headache and you become irritable, and that can trigger a lot of other negative emotions. Okay, so drinking a lot of water, exercising. The beauty about exercise is that it makes you feel good, and it also floods your body with endorphins. So these are feel-good chemicals So just going out for exercise helps to burst stress away, okay? Socially, there are a lot of resources available to us. Get connected. Use whatever media is available to connect with your loved ones. This could be your friends, your relatives. We are very fortunate these days that we can link up with people even who are very far away, do video calls even, because there's something about connecting physically, seeing your loved ones and talking to your loved ones. Then socially, you can also find someone who is safe to vent if there is a serious problem that you are struggling with. Talking is very helpful. If you've got someone who can listen to you, you'll be surprised that just sharing the problem, even if it's not yet solved, it relieves you of the pressures that you might have. There is one aspect that's also available to us as Christians. And so I like to think of this as how to deal with, how to use psychological skills to handle stress. If you pay attention to yourself and you imagine certain things, there is a connection that you see between the body and the mind. So there is a game that I usually use with a lot of my clients. So I would ask you to imagine that you've got a lemon. Take 2 or 3 minutes to do this exercise. Imagine that you've got a lemon and then you start peeling it slowly, feeling the juice of the liquid going onto your fingers, paying attention to the smell. A lot of the times I see people making faces, groaning, and they tell me that they get some physical sensations, including tasting the bitterness of the lemon on their mouth. When I ask them to take one segment and pop it into your mouth and chew it so slowly, It's fascinating how a lot of people have physical responses like salivating to a lemon that is not there, okay? I find this very fascinating because while I've done it like hundreds of times, I still salivate. What does this mean? There is a strong connection between our minds and our bodies. So what it means is, if you spend a lot of time thinking lemon thoughts, your body will respond. What are the implications to managing stress in this period and any other period? Pay attention to who you spend time with. Pay attention to what you listen to. Pay attention to what you watch. And avoid negative people. Avoid complainers. Because even the Bible, Proverbs says, negative people drain marrow from the bones. Okay? So avoid those people. Avoid even negative social media posts because they will just make you anxious and not solve anything, okay? So what you think is very important. So I've heard people asking, what can I do? I continue thinking. I don't want to be thinking about this. How can I help myself? There are ways that you can help yourself. If your mind is filled with negative thoughts, and which is not helpful, you can start inputting different kinds of thoughts. The way we spoke about the lemon, you can then find something that's opposite to a lemon that's helpful. So for example, you can use music, pleasant, healing music. Spend your time listening to that kind of music. Eventually it will take over and you start, your mind starts playing that music. You can use scripture. So for example, instead of worrying and thinking about the infections, you can recite certain scriptures which are helpful, like Psalms 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Just doing that is assuring to yourself. Guess what? While we spend time worrying, there are scientific studies that have been done that show that 40% of the things that we worry about never happen. And I'm quite sure you've worried about certain things and they don't happen. Remember how Mary and her friends were worrying about going to spice up Jesus' body, and they were worried as to who was going to remove the huge stone that had been put at the opening of the grave. But guess what? Like Mary, you should just, not stop doing what you want to do because you're worried about the future. but continue, because they continued and went there anyway without the solution. And guess what? They found that the boulder that they were worried about was not there anyway. So let's not worry about things that are in the future before we get there, because maybe they will not happen. Studies show that 30% of the things that people worry about have already happened, and they can do nothing to change what has already happened. And what's also worse is that 22% of people worry about things that are beyond their control. I hear a lot of people talking about maybe the world economy, even the country's economy. And yet, as an individual, there is very little you can do about it. It's okay to be concerned, it's okay to discuss, but for you to then lose sleep and ruminate over something that you have no control of, it's a waste of energies. So the things that actually happen and that are in our control is only 8% that we need to be thinking about. Okay, I found this, so I watched a certain video from a Chinese presenter, and I found this very fascinating. I'm going to leave you with it. So he says, in his Chinese accent, do you have a problem? No. So, why worry? Okay. Do you have a problem? Yes. Do you have a solution to the problem? Yes. So, why worry? Okay. Do you have a problem? Yes. Do you have a solution to the problem? No. You don't have a solution to the problem, so why worry? You know, I found this very fascinating. There is no scenario that entitles us, that should warrant us to be worrying about anything. If you can't do anything about it, if you have a solution, if you don't have a solution. So anyway, as I was preparing for this, I started looking for the name of the presenter so that I would, or even look for other presentations. As I was scrolling down the charts, I saw this message. So someone had commented, do you know the name of the presenter? No. Why worry? And I realized, okay, I guess I don't need to be worried about this presenter. I need to just worry about the message, which I already have. Okay. There is a prayer that is very helpful. It's called the Serenity Prayer, which sort of summarizes what we've discussed this morning. So it goes, God grant me the serenity or the peace to accept things that I cannot change, courage to change those things that I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I hope that we will be able to cast all our worries on the Lord. Help Him to help us to see what we can change so that we change that, but to accept and live at peace with those things that we cannot change. Okay? So, why worry? Stay safe and have a good day.